Ahoy mateys, my name is Marianne. Today, We the Kids invites all landlubbers and lassies to join us as we journey back to the 1700s for an American history lesson on piracy from two of our favorite privateers, Hawk, Wolfraven, and their cabin boy. Shiver me timbers, me knees me spyglass. Methinks I spies a ship.
Welcome, laddies and lasses, to We the Kids. It's a pirate's life for me.
Wolfraven.
Aye.
Did I tell you the time when I was a young cabin boy? I tried to be entertaining by showing him some magic tricks.
Not this story.
Let's hear me out. Every time I would try a magic trick, I'd pull out a deck of cards. The parrot would say, "Right, seen how it's done." I'd pull out some metal rings. The parrot would say, "Right, seen how it's done." I'd pull out some bean bags. The parrot would say, "Right, seen how it's done." I got so mad. I pulled out my pistol and I shot at the parrot. I missed the parrot, shot the powder keg behind the parrot, and it blew the ship to smithereens. The only one left in the water was me and the parrot. And finally, the parrot looks at me and goes, "Okay, I give up. Where's the ship?" Okay, just tell the young ones here about what a ship is.
What is a ship? Oh, well, we've got the answer for you today. I'm going to speak today on nautical terminology. Those are things that have to do with the sea. Terminology are professional words used in business or industry. Now, all hands on deck. This is a term not used by blacksmiths, nor lumberjacks, nor a baluster in Parliament. This is a nautical term used by sailors on a ship. It calls working men to muster on the main deck. Usually a man, a boatswain, would blow a pipe or whistle to announce it. Now, all hands to the main deck. Morning and noon musters account for the crew giving out work assignments. Now, most people know what a ship is. A ship is a craft or a conveyance which moves us across the water. Let me show you. Now, most ships consist of a hull, and we have masts, which are large timbers coming up out of the deck. We have a rudder to help to steer the ship, and of course we have sails. The hull, of course, is pointed at one end. And a square or round at the other end. The point of the ship is called the head of the ship, and it usually has something called a bowsprit out the end. And a rudder is mounted on the stern of the ship. The back of the ship is the stern, the front of the ship is the bow. Where we steer from here is usually has a wheel, and this is called the helm.
What about the poop deck?
Sometimes, without that, there's a rudder arm, depending on the ship, of course. Now, the floor that the crew walks upon is called the deck. The top deck is called a main deck, or the weather deck, because it's always out in the weather. To go down below the ship, to go down inside, would be called to lay below. Above the decks, mounted into them are the tall timbers, again, which we call the masts. There are horizontal timbers in which the sails are mounted into, and these are called cross members or yard arms. There's a good word for a yard arm. Now, many ropes and lines are used to hold up these masts and lift the sails up and down on the ship. Now, these lines are called rigging. The ones that hold up the mast are called standing rigging, because they help it stand up and they don't go nowhere. Then, the lines that are used to do the sails are called running rigging, because you run them through pulleys and pull the lines. Now, the sails, as we all know, are mounted on the yard arms, and they catch the wind, which moves the ship through the waters. If you were to stand in the middle of the main deck, like right down here in the middle, you would be standing amidships. You may go forward to the bow, or you may go aft to the stern. These are these words we talk about, professional words. If you were to climb up the masts, you would be called going aloft. And of course, we have going below. You may go aft to steer the ship.
On the poop deck.
On the helm. Or you may go forward to the bow and stand lookout duty. You've done that a few times, haven't you there, lad? You may even get to go aloft to the crow's nest, in which you would again stand lookout. You can see farther from up there. You may be instructed to go below to the galley, which is where the cooks are. They cook up the dinner and the grog and all the things that the sailors would need.
Yeah, that would be on that ship if they cook up the
Oh,
centers.
yeah. And you may be asked to go forward down here to the bosun's hold or the forecastle to get lines to bring back in case they have to tie something down. Those are part of the nomenclature on the ship. These are a type of commands that we're given on a ship. All the men must understand these commands and where to go aloft or lay below. Now, below the hull, underneath the water, is a long fin. And this is called the keel. It is the backbone of the ship. The supportive cross members that are inside the ship are ribs, just like we have a backbone and a ribs, just like on a human body. Wooden beams on the decks, these are called thwarts. Thwarts run left and right under the decks. This is a nautical term to move back and forth on the decks, is to go athwart ships. You've done that before, haven't you, lad? Now, facing forward on the bow, the right side of the ship is called the starboard side, and the left side of the ship is called the port side. Now, for the ships that are navigating at night, they put lights on the ships. So you can see either a white light there, a white light, a red or a green. The lights are used on ships to tell which way they're going. The white light is used on the stern or the back of the ship. And on the bow, a red or green light is used. Red is on the left and green is on the right. Now, to remember these terms, it is said, port and left have 4 letters, and a port wine is red. So the light would be red. On the starboard, right and green, they have more than 4 letters. So it's easy to remember. About what?
What comes after 4?
What comes after 4? They thought you were going to ask about the poop deck. All right, to stand at the helm and steer the ship, you would be given commands. You may be asked to steer 10 degrees right rudder, 5 degrees left rudder, mind your helm, or come to rudder amidships. On the helm, where you steer from,
the poop deck.
On the helm, you would repeat the command and say, aye. For example, you'd turn the wheel and again repeat the command after it is done, rudder amidships, at which point the captain or the navigator would say, aye. You've heard this before. The poop deck.
I knew there
The
was
first thing we must know about the poop deck is we never poop on the poop deck, because the captain's cabin is down here, and that would not be fitting. Instead, rather, up here on the bow of the ship, we have nets at the head of the ship. You would climb down to the head of the ship and do your duties there. And that's why they say, I'm going to the head. Nautical terminology. So, it is very important on a ship to know your job, and also the term used by the ship's crew. Whether you were a sailor on a ship for England or a merchant ship bringing spices from the Orient. Whether the captain or the cook, the navigator or the steerman. On deck, down below, or aloft in the sails. Knowledge is the key to being a proficient sailor. It would decide your pay, where you slept, or even if you ate at the captain's table. So, there you go. Good day and safe sailing.
very good, Wolfraven.
There you go.
You know, you mentioned several times about being safe. You know, I remember this time I had walked into an establishment. I seen a guy there, he had a peg leg, he had a hook, and a patch on his eye. And I said, what happened to the leg? He looked at me with that other stern eye of his and he said, aye, a queen's cannonball took me leg. I said, what happened to your hand? And again he says, aye, a queen's sailor with a quick blade took me hand. I thought, man, this guy's been around. So I thought, might as well ask him about his eye. I said, what happened to your eye? And he looked at me with that other stern eye of his. He says, aye, first day with hook.
Oh, the darn seagulls.
I'm telling you. Anyways, you know, when you have a ship, one of the most important things is the safety of the ship.
Aye.
And there are times we are called to defend that ship.
Aye.
So I think today I will talk about the various tools they used to defending their home.
Aye.
You know, you might have been on the other side of the world, but that ship was your home.
Aye,
and you had to defend your home. Because if not, everything you worked for, well, would be sunk.
Or stolen.
I'm telling you. Well, as you know, if you would like to show the knife, knives were plenty upon the ship. They were used everything from the kitchen to, you know, cutting rope.
Cutting rope.
But if you carried a personal knife aboard the ship, the first thing you had to do was take it to the blacksmith, and they knocked the tip off of it.
Break the tip.
For two reasons. One, they didn't want you accidentally poking it through the sails. Two, the doctor or the surgeon on the ship knew it was much easier to sew up a slice than a puncture.
Aye.
So if the men would get in fights, they'd slice each other instead of puncture. So your tip was knocked off your blade if you were to carry it personally on the ship.
Aye.
Now,
Damages.
and of course the knives, they'd come in all shapes and sizes and all that. You know, and one of the most important things aboard a ship most people don't ever think about was your boarding axe.
Aye.
Oh, you use that for cutting the various ropes in a storm, to doing very basic carpentry work. The spike at the end was square for a reason. As you were pulling the ships together with the grappling hooks, the men could line up along the ship and they'd all slam this into the other rail of the ship and they'd all pull together because that's curved. It would dig into the wood and pull the ship in. So that's why it was squared instead of round so it wouldn't slip out. But those were pretty plentiful aboard the ship. Some guys think that they needed to bring their own tools aboard the ship, but if you did, all tools were kept in the armory until needed. And of course, again, knives come in shapes and sizes of beauty from around the world. But you know, one of the best friends you had aboard the ship was your cutlass.
Aye, the cutlass.
The cutlass. The blade was no longer than 26 inches because of all the ropes and the riggings. You had to be able to learn to defend yourself. Now, pirates and privateers and sailors from all over the world had different shapes and sizes. I believe you picked yours up in the Mediterranean.
Hey, mine comes from the Mediterranean.
That one there would have been very common in the Mediterranean and northern Africa. They liked it because of the short, stout blade, but the downside about it didn't have any guard on it.
This is me mother's. She gave it to me.
Well, there you go.
Last I was in port.
You know, but you tried to get the men not to come on your ship so you didn't have to use these. So one of the things they would use, besides their obviously artillery fire and mortars, is you had the trusty blunderbuss.
Hey, the blunderbuss.
Now the blunderbuss didn't fire a single projectile like we think of today. You had to put your gunpowder in it. You would have put anything from river rocks to broken glass to pottery to nails to shards of metal, anything and everything you could have found.
Clear the decks.
That's exactly what it's for, is clearing decks. Now if somebody would have dropped a bottle aboard the ship, they didn't throw it overboard like people think. It would have been wrapped up in leather, broken with a hammer, and poured into a bag so they had stuff to pour it in. Oh. And you have to understand that most people aboard the ships did not die because of the initial wound. Infection and disease killed probably 2/3 of the people aboard a ship. So if you were cut with a piece of glass or something shot out of this, that initial wound probably didn't take your life. It was taken probably by disease or infection. Now, most of the tools used aboard a ship were also used as an emergency weapon. You had the marlin spike. Of course, we know that doing work on ships of various knots, you know, splicing, whatever, every sailor had to have a marlin spike. Well, and in case of emergency, you could have used that to defend yourself. Another tool aboard the ship is the belay pin. If you'd like to explain to them what a belay pin was used for the ship.
A belaying pin is used on board a ship, as a rule, to secure lines to. There's a board that has a hole in it, and you would stick it into the hole, and then you would come down off of a sail.
Let me have that in.
Yeah,
on the sail.
I'd come down and pull a sail in, and when I go to secure it, I'd come down under here and come around and secure the line. And that would hold the sail secure. Now, at such a time I had to release it, the belaying pin could be pulled out of the board and the line released. And likewise, if a man was coming on board my ship who was not allowed, we may pick this up and greet him with it.
It was also used as a nice recruiting tool.
Oh,
recruiting.
Recruiting. Well, the belaying pin.
Have I missed anything?
Well, we have some tools here that we would use when navigating. We would have our charts, and not everybody's eye was the same. We would have a magnifying glass with the little legs on it. And then when we were looking short and closely down to see where all the reefs were, we could look better on a map. Over here.
Well, this is the compass. Every sailor has to know what direction north was. Okay? What direction does a compass always point when you're above the equator?
North.
What direction does it point when you're south of the equator?
South.
Okay, if you're north of the equator, if you point the compass north, I've also got a sundial, and it lets me know what time it is. Okay? So between the tools of the ship, between the sextant, the compass, and the constellations, you could do your latitude and longitude and know about right where you're at.
Yep. At the night you would use the stars, and in the daytime you would pull out a sextant, and you would take this and you would look, and there are mirrors of which we would swing back and forth. There are colored glasses so you don't burn your eyeballs, and you would put it down till you could see the sun, and then you would find the horizon and the azimuth, and you would do all the computations here to find out where the sun set or where it lied in the skies. And then you would see here, and you would find perhaps a latitude of 42 degrees, and you would look on your chart and find where 42 degrees is, and then you would be able to look and find the intersection of where you were upon the sea. And that is called a sextant. Of course, we have doing rounds upon the ship.
Gotta have a lantern.
The man who walked around at night would carry a lantern so he would see on the deck.
That's what your whale oil was used for.
Whale oil. which was a good industry back in those days.
That was a big industry.
Even pirates would steal many things. One prize would be whale oil because they could go into any port and sell the whale oil.
That's correct.
And to use it on all their lanterns and cleaning their guns and weaponry and keeping all the rust off their swords and tools.
Have we missed anything that maybe one of the young lad or lasses out here might be curious about that we haven't mentioned?
I don't know. What would you think?
You don't know. Should I tell them the time that I was a captain aboard the ship?
Oh, go ahead.
I was a young captain.
My throat dry.
That's a good idea. Thank you. As a young captain, I remember my first mate come up to me and he says, "Captain, for we got a ship up on the horizon." I said, "Bring me my red shirt." So my men, we fought valiantly. We won that day.
Oi.
Aye, my first mate come up to me and says, "Aye, Captain, for we were victorious." I said, "Aye." But he said, "Captain, I got a question for you." I said, "What?" He said, "Why did you want me to bring me your red shirt?"
Oh, the red
I said, "So if I get cut and I bleed, it won't lower the morale of the men and they continue to fight." He says, "Aye, that was a great idea." I said, "Aye." I remember it was not long after that. He ran into my cabin and he says, "Captain, for there's 10 ships up on the horizon." I said, "Bring me my brown pants."
That's a good one.
Thanks. Yeah, we had to leave.
Oh. What have we here?
Well, as a pirate, these are some of the flags you'd have looked out for if you were out hunting pirates. There were several people that used this one. You know, you had Captain Kidd, Calico Jack. You liked this one?
Calico Jack.
Calico Jack. His wife was Anne Bonny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They got their necks stretched in England.
In England they did.
Yes, they did.
Stretched.
Well, you know, and there was one man, Edward Teach. He thought for sure that Captain Kidd had buried treasure. Whether he did or not, he was obsessed with it. And it was known as Blackbeard. You remember Blackbeard? Yes, I heard he lost his head off the coast of the Carolinas. Yes.
I believe they took his head back to England.
They hung it on London Bridge.
Hung it from London Bridge so all pirates would be warned.
The problem is somebody stole it.
Somebody stole his
Can you believe stealing from a pirate?
Couldn't believe stealing a head.
Well, somebody just wanted to get ahead.
Oh. Over here, we have a piece of line here with a knot in it. And this is just not any knot, as it would be said. This is called a monkey's fist. And every good boatswain and sailor and seaman would know how to make a monkey's fist. We would take the line and weave it and weave it and weave it and tighten it up, and we'd stick in a ball of lead. And that line, when we wanted to throw it to another ship, was heavy. And we'd tie it to a smaller line, and it was also called a heaving line. And we'd pass that over to a ship or to a small boat.
Or to a dock.
To a dock, if we were pulling up and we couldn't reach it.
Do you know what a pirate's favorite letter is?
No, what would that be?
I used to think it was R, but I realize it's the C.
The C.
Hey.
I thought it was I.
No.
Hey, do you know how much the pirate paid for his peg leg and his hook on his arm?
I would say an arm and a leg.
Oh, that's true.
Some of the knives aboard the ship would have been used in the galley.
Well, like this one here.
Like that one precisely. Speaking of galley, would you like something to eat?
Oh, hey, that I would.
Where's the cabin boy? Hey, Nipper, go down to the galley. Tell the cook to bring him up some fresh fruit that we just picked up.
Yes, sir.
Snap to it.
The little Nipper. Oh, there.
How close is that galley?
He's a fast young
I'm
lad. That's why
telling
they
you,
call
he
him
was
a nipper.
What do you like here?
I believe I'll have an orange.
You know, it's important aboard the ship to get your vitamin C.
Aye. You know about vitamin C.
You don't want to get scurvy.
Don't want scurvy. Did you know that the English sailors found vitamin C in limes would help combat scurvy because your teeth will fall out? And when they took limes aboard the ship, they didn't get scurvy. And henceforth after,
They were known as limeys.
limeys. There you go.
Aye.
I believe that's it.
I believe that's it. If you guys have any questions or comments or compliments, we take them all. So see you next time on A Pirate's Life for Me.
Aye.
We the Kids wishes you Godspeed. fair winds, and following seas.